Breaking: Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell is reportedly considering stepping down, and it's sending shockwaves through the crypto market. XRP is surging as traders brace for a possible shift in monetary policy that could inject trillions into risk assets. If this resignation becomes official, it may trigger one of the most significant pivots in Fed history, and XRP could be one of the biggest beneficiaries. Bitcoin just exploded to a new all-time high. XRP is ripping past resistance levels like they don't exist. Even Dogecoin, yes, the meme that refuses to die, is crawling back into the spotlight like it's 2021 all over again. Everywhere you look, green candles. Excitement. Euphoria. And then, this headline drops. Jerome Powell, the man behind US interest rates, inflation control, and trillions in global liquidity, is now reportedly considering resigning. Think about what that means. The most powerful man in monetary policy may be walking off the field during the most volatile moment of the decade. But it gets weirder. The viral story that's setting off this market frenzy? It's quoting itself. I'm serious. The guy who posted the article, Bill P., is using himself as the source. No press release. No confirmation. Just one post saying this is happening, and boom, the entire market lights up. So now here we are. The crypto market is reacting to a loop of information that might not even be real. XRP, Bitcoin, altcoins, they're all flying based on a maybe. The question no one's asking is, what happens if Powell doesn't resign? What happens if this is just market noise, and the Fed isn't going anywhere? Because here's the scary part. Sometimes the biggest crashes don't come after bad news, they come after fake good news. So is this the beginning of an XRP breakout? Or the setup for the biggest rug pull of the year? Let's break it all down. And no, I'm not quoting myself. Yeah. Alright, here's what we actually know. Jerome Powell, the current chairman of the US Federal Reserve, is rumored to be stepping down. That's the story. That's the spark that lit this fire. And if you've been in crypto long enough, you know, when something shakes the Fed, everything else starts shaking too. Now, here's why this matters. If Powell really steps aside, the door swings wide open for Donald Trump, or whichever administration takes over, to pick someone new. Someone who's a lot more aggressive about cutting interest rates. And Trump hasn't exactly been subtle. He's said straight up that interest rates should be slashed down to 1%. Let me break that down for you in plain language. If that happens, it would be the largest monetary policy pivot in modern US history. Not just a cut, a floodgate. Because when rates go that low, fast, the money printer gets louder. Liquidity surges. Risk assets pump. And historically, crypto benefits more than anything else. That includes Bitcoin. That includes XRP. Here's what's crazy. History tells us there's usually a 12-week lag from the time rates drop to the time crypto spikes hard. That gives us a countdown. And if this timeline plays out, we could be looking at explosive movement by early September. But hold on. Don't start counting profits just yet. Here's where this entire story starts to unravel. The article that broke this story about Powell resigning? It came from someone named Bill P., and the source inside that article is Bill P. It's one guy, referencing himself, posting a headline with zero official confirmation, and somehow, it's now driving the behavior of a trillion-dollar market. So ask yourself, are we witnessing the beginning of a historic crypto breakout? Or is the market reacting to a rumor built on a rumor, held together by wishful thinking? And more importantly, what happens if Powell isn't stepping down at all? Because if this is all smoke and mirrors, and the Fed stays right where it is, the crash that follows won't be emotional. It'll be mechanical. But before we go there, let's zoom in on the part of the market that's behaving the most irrationally right now, XRP. Let's talk XRP. It's pumping, and I mean aggressively. Price is pushing higher, volume spiking, and social media is in full send mode. TikTok screaming $10 XRP like it's already a done deal. Discord servers are full of laser eyes and moon emojis. YouTube thumbnails? All caps. Fireballs. Rocket ships. The mood right now is, we made it. But here's what happens almost every time crypto feels this good. The chart does the opposite. We've now had 4 straight green daily candles. That's rare. The last time we saw this exact setup with XRP, Bitcoin corrected nearly 20% within the same week. And guess what's flashing again? The stochastic RSI, a momentum indicator traders use to track overbought and oversold zones, has been screaming overbought since the last week of June. That's not just warm. That's overheated. And let me be blunt, when retail gets euphoric and starts blindly piling in, smart money quietly starts walking out. Every pump attracts retail. Every peak attracts greed. And every time that happens without a real catalyst, the chart eventually says enough. Now, could XRP go higher from here? Sure. It could blast through another dollar and everyone will say, see? Told you so. But what happens if tomorrow's candle is red? What happens if we hit 5 green days in a row, and then give back 3 of them in one brutal correction? Because that's what happens in markets driven by emotion instead of logic. The climb is slow. The fall is instant. And if this Powell resignation turns out to be fake, if the entire pump was fueled by hot air, that red candle won't just be a dip. It could be a trapdoor. So ask yourself, is this really sustainable? Or are we just watching the setup for a textbook bull trap? And before you panic sell or FOMO in at the top, take a breath, because what smart money is doing right now is the exact opposite of what most people on social media are doing. Let's take a closer look at how they are playing this, and why it's not about hype. It's about setups. So while retail investors are busy chasing green candles, cheering on TikTok calls, and panic buying into price spikes, smart money is doing something completely different. They are waiting. They are stalking the chart like predators. They are not playing emotional games, they are playing probabilities. They are not reacting to price, they are reacting to behavior. And right now? They are seeing what they've seen 100 times before, retail FOMO at the top. Here's the truth most people ignore. Real investors don't buy breakouts when everything is overheated. They buy dips. They set alerts. They position slowly while everyone else is distracted by hype and headlines. Think of it like hunting in a fog. Retail is running around chasing ghosts. Smart money sitting still, waiting for the fog to clear, and when it does, they strike. Personally, I haven't touched XRP futures in days. 4 straight green candles is not an entry, it's a warning. I'm not buying into something that looks like it's been drinking energy drinks on a caffeine-4 drip. I'm watching the charts like a hawk. And the second we see a clean red day, a panic candle, an overreaction, a flush out, that's where I set limit orders. That's where value lives. It's worked time and time again. My long-term XRP spot holdings? Still climbing. I've held through noise, through dips, through hype cycles like this one. And you know why? Because I didn't FOMO in at the top, I bought structure. I bought fear. Now, that doesn't mean XRP isn't going higher. It might. But I'm not here to win today. I'm here to win the cycle. And that means letting the chart come to me, not chasing it like it owes me something. But here's where it gets interesting. Even if this Powell story turns out to be complete fiction, even if the Fed does nothing, there's still something else coming that could shift the entire market. And barely anyone's paying attention. Let's talk about what's happening next week. Because the setup being teased could either be historic or hilariously overblown. Here's where things start getting even weirder. Just as this Powell rumor was catching fire, the US Director of Digital Assets, yes, that's a real position now, suddenly tweets this. Huge week ahead. Time to make America the crypto capital of the world. No context. No clarification. No timeline. Just a vague statement that sounds like it came from a political ad, but with billions in market cap behind it. And the market? Ate it up. Now you tell me, is that a flex? Or a warning? Because when someone with that level of influence speaks in riddles, smart investors pause. The rest? They rush in, hoping it means a moonshot is coming. So what could it be? A landmark crypto summit? A new digital dollar pilot? A regulatory green light? Maybe. Or, maybe it's just another empty headline with no substance behind it. You've seen it before. Someone says, we're exploring the future of innovation, and the next day, price tanks because no one actually did anything. And here's the trap. Markets don't just crash from bad news. Sometimes, they crash from no news. From disappointment. From expectations that were never met. When the crowd is already fully positioned, already fully long, already emotionally invested, even neutral news can cause panic. And right now? XRP is stretched. Bitcoin is vertical. Altcoins are behaving like it's the Super Bowl. That's what makes this setup dangerous. Because if Powell doesn't resign, and this mysterious big week turns out to be a dud, we might have just built the perfect conditions for a black swan moment. One that wasn't caused by a global war or financial collapse, but by a hype cycle that ate itself. So now the million-dollar question. If this market is reacting this violently to one unconfirmed rumor, how will it respond when real policy changes actually hit? When rate cuts are announced? Or worse, when they are delayed? Because there's one bombshell nobody's prepared for. And it's not just about Powell. It's about what XRP becomes when the dust settles, and who's about to try to stop it. Let's go deeper. Here's what almost nobody is talking about. Not the influencers, not the news sites, not even most traders. The real bombshell isn't that Jerome Powell might resign. It's not even about rate cuts. That's the smoke. The real fire is what happens after, when the system adjusts. When the rules of monetary gravity start to bend, and something like XRP moves from speculative asset to structural alternative. Let me explain. If Trump or any future administration slashes rates the way he's hinted, down to 1%, we're not just talking about bullish for crypto. We are talking about a deliberate pivot away from monetary discipline. A flood of printed liquidity, used to keep the economy afloat, no matter the long-term cost. And what happens when governments start sacrificing the value of their currency just to keep markets happy? People start looking for exits. This is where XRP comes in, not as a meme, not as a trade, but as infrastructure. A neutral, scalable settlement layer. A bridge asset not controlled by central banks. A way to move value across borders, outside the traditional banking choke points. That's not hype. That's already what it's being tested for. Now imagine what happens when the global economy starts losing faith in fiat itself. Imagine what XRP becomes when trust in the dollar, the euro, the yen, starts to erode, not in price, but in purpose. That's the real bombshell. Not Powell quitting. But XRP emerging in the vacuum left by centralized systems reaching their limit. And here's the part you can't ignore. If XRP becomes a legitimate threat to legacy financial rails, it won't be celebrated. It'll be targeted. Because when something moves from useful to too powerful, the people who run the old system don't roll out the red carpet. They come with regulations, investigations, lawsuits, and pressure campaigns designed to stall adoption just long enough for them to catch up. So if XRP does become the anti-dollar, a decentralized fallback when fiat fails, we need to be watching what the other side does next. Because someone's going to try and stop it. Let me show you what that crackdown could look like, and the exact warning signs to look for before it hits. Let's be real. If XRP starts acting like a serious alternative to the SWIFT system, if it starts gaining traction as a cross-border, non-government controlled settlement layer, there will be pushback. Massive pushback. Because the institutions that control money, central banks, legacy payment networks, global regulators, they're not built to lose market share quietly. They protect what they've built. And when something threatens that structure, the reaction is always the same. Deny, discredit, delay. And we've already seen version 1 of that. Remember the Ripple lawsuit? That wasn't just legal housekeeping. That was a shot across the bow, a message that said, slow down. And it worked. XRP lost listings. Partnerships paused. Momentum stalled. Now imagine that, but 10x. If XRP starts to take real share from settlement networks like SWIFT or begins being used as collateral between large-scale institutions. Here's what to watch for next. The 3 warning signs that the next round of suppression is coming. Number 1. Sudden silence from Ripple's legal or executive team. Not delays. Not PR fluff. I'm talking about full radio silence during peak momentum. That usually means something's coming behind closed doors. Number 2. A wave of coordinated media pieces. If Bloomberg, CNBC, and CoinDesk all suddenly run anti-XRP narratives in the same week, that's not a coincidence. That's strategic pressure. And number 3. Quiet interruptions in RippleNet corridors. If liquidity partners in Asia, Latin America, or Europe start pausing operations or reviewing compliance, that's smoke before fire. Especially if those pauses come without explanation. None of this means XRP is dead. On the contrary, it means it's doing something that actually matters. Because you don't face resistance when you're irrelevant. You face resistance when you're getting too close. I still hold XRP. I still believe in what it's built for. But I'm not naive about how these battles play out. When you're a real threat to legacy money, they don't compete. They suppress. They regulate. They weaponize uncertainty. But here's the upside. For every crackdown in crypto history, there's been a comeback. Bitcoin got banned, and it bounced. Ethereum got called a security, and it kept building. The same could happen here. But first, we need to talk about timing, because the upcoming rate decision could light the fuse, or smother the flame. Let's look at what happens next. Alright, let's zoom out. If Jerome Powell really does resign, and if Trump or any future administration pushes for that 1% interest rate, we are not just talking bullish anymore. We are talking reset-level liquidity. That kind of rate cut isn't small. It's not just a few extra points on a spreadsheet. It's a complete reversal of monetary direction. A shift from tightening to full-blown economic acceleration. And when that happens, crypto doesn't just respond, it explodes. Let me give you some historical context. In March 2020, the Fed slashed rates to near zero. What followed? Bitcoin at $3,800 turned into $69,000 in under 2 years. XRP? It ran. Altcoins? They multiplied. And that was with economic uncertainty. Imagine what happens this time with public support, political pressure, and infrastructure already in place. Even if Powell doesn't step down, the writing's already on the wall. Inflation is cooling. Jobs data is weakening. And every time the Fed pivots from hawkish to dovish, every single time, crypto benefits. Which brings us to XRP. Right now, it's not just a speculative trade. It's a proxy for what happens when traditional finance starts to break rhythm. It's a stress test of the global system. And that's why timing matters. Because once a policy pivot begins, once rates start dropping or the market expects them to, the big players will already be in. Retail will show up late, chasing green. And the early opportunity? Gone. Personally, I'm not loading up today. But I'm also not sleeping on this setup. I've got alerts set on key rate announcements. I'm tracking regulatory chatter. I'm watching Ripple's legal pulse, volume trends, and on-chain transactions. Because when this thing moves again, for real, it'll be fast, and there might not be a second entry. That's how it works in crypto. It builds pressure, quietly, then blows all at once. And those who were prepared? They ride it. The rest? They get left with tweets, screenshots, and regret. Now, I'll show you exactly how I'm positioning, what I'm watching next, and how you can be ready too, before the next move happens. Let's wrap this up. Look, you don't need a crystal ball. You don't need to guess headlines or chase hype. What you need is simple: discipline, perspective, and the ability to step back when everyone else is zooming in. This Powell resignation story? It might be real. It might be a total bluff. But that's not even the point anymore. The real takeaway is this: the crypto market is sitting on a fault line. And it's ready to move. It just needs the right trigger. Whether that's rate cuts, a regulatory green light, or some black swan event nobody sees coming, the pressure is building. And when it breaks, XRP isn't going to send a calendar invite. It's going to move fast, violently, and without warning. That's why I'm not chasing. I'm not rushing in. I'm tracking the real indicators: Fed announcements, legal filings, whales moving on-chain, hidden volume spikes, corridor activity, social signals before they go viral. And if you want in on that, the actual levels I'm watching, the entries I'm setting, and what I plan to do the moment the next big move happens, it's simple. Check the link in the description. Follow the 3 steps. It's free, no charge. And once you're in, you'll get access to my private Discord. Real traders, real signals, real-time thinking. No hype. No spam. Just execution. And here's the kicker. There's one more piece of news coming, buried deep in a government report, scheduled to drop in the next few days, that could flip this market faster than any Powell resignation. I'll break that down in the next video. So make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell so you don't miss it, and do me one favor in the comments. Let me know what you think. Is Powell really stepping down? Or did the market just get punked by a guy quoting himself? Either way, we are not waiting. We are watching. We are ready. Much love. Stay sharp. Stack smart. And I'll see you in the next one.